The man who's going to be calling the Big Ten championship game with Gus Johnson on Fox coming up on Saturday, and a man who's got, I guess, an alma mater rooting interest in the same way that my alma mater now has a rooting interest together. Joel Klatt here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's up, Joel?
What's going on? And I've got a rooting interest along with your guys. I've got the Golf Channel up in my hotel room right now.
You want to give me the Tiger update instead of my Chris Command Center? Go for it. Does he look good to you, too?
He looks smooth. He's got one birdie on the card today. He's hit two beautiful pitch shots, which was a big question coming in. He outdrove Patrick Reed by 18 yards on number 3, a par 5. He's in the fairway of number 6, a par 5. I'm excited, boy.
That's awesome.
Oh, he's back.
That's great. But now let's talk about the most important thing, which is the Colorado Buffaloes' chances against the Washington Huskies. Because a lot of Go Blue people have replaced blue with Buffs. Go Buffs. What do you think about the Pac-12 championship game, Joel?
Well, now that I'm not, calling, I called the Washington State game, which is, it's not an easy thing to do. I got to be honest with you. But now that I'm not calling the game, I can just be a rooting interest. I really believe in Colorado. Let me tell you why. It's not just because I'm an alum. It's the fact that when Sefo Lufau, their quarterback, has played 4 quarters of football, they haven't lost a game. Rich, you saw him in the Big House. When he was healthy, they had the lead on the Wolverines in the middle of the third quarter. That's a good football team when he's in there. They did not have him when they played at USC, lost by 4 points, 21-17 to a really good Sam Darnold-led USC team. Only by 4 on the road with their backup quarterback. I think their defense is one of the most unheralded defenses in all of college football. They stopped Joe Williams cold, who was running it for 160 yards on everybody after he came back earlier this season. He's the Utah back. That's why I believe in Colorado, is just their body of work. Obviously, Washington's a great team. I've seen them 3 times. They're very talented. But if there's one thing that you can get to, it's their offensive line and their quarterback. And hopefully Colorado can do that. And if Colorado wins, I tell you, Michigan's in a great spot because of that head-to-head victory over the Buffs.
Yeah, but then again, that's the game you're calling, though. I mean, the game that you're calling's got to mean something, right? I mean, it's got to mean something for the winner of that game between Wisconsin and Penn State, right?
Certainly, it has to mean something. I get really frustrated. I'm sure you know this. I've said things like this on your show before. I get really frustrated with the adults in the room of college football. They've kind of ruined the sport, to be quite honest with you.
What do you mean by that?
And the structure is completely broken because they act in their own self-interest. Now, I know that that's human nature, but I liken it all the way back, and I made this analogy on before, and forgive me if this is boring, but I think
please.
College football sits, Rich, where our country sat after we won the Revolutionary War and before the Constitutional Convention. The states had too much power back then, and so then you had these people that were states' rights people, you had these Federalists, and you had to come together in the Constitutional Convention to put an umbrella over the country and say we're going to act as one, in particular when it relates to international law. College football right now is in that, I would call it that period, that Articles of Confederation period, where all these conferences just act in their own self-interest. So the SEC plays 8 conference games. Everyone else plays 9 conference games. Everyone does it a little bit differently as far as the intra-division schedule. The AC, whether it's the ACC, Big Ten, so on and so forth. And so to try to crown a champion is almost impossible. So we're trying to apply logic at the end of the season to something that has no logic surrounding it for the entire course of the regular season. And then the playoff committee tries to be all things to all people, which is really frustrating. They're a mile wide and an inch deep. I want them to be an inch wide and a mile deep. I want you to locate the criteria that we are going to honor teams with and then allow them to go out there and accomplish those things. We're taking away from the accomplishments of players on the field by just applying best team to Ohio State and most deserving to Clemson, because Clemson hasn't been all that impressive this year. 6 one-possession games, losing to Pitt, all these things. We need to get on the same page, and a lot of that starts with the structure of the conferences and how they operate. We need a constitutional convention, and I would throw my hat in there as the commissioner of college
Yeah, I was about
football.
to say that because we need that. I mean, you went all Hamilton on me, so maybe we should get Lin-Manuel Miranda to put this to music and put it on Broadway and figure this whole thing out. I mean, so because I don't know what the fix is. Then what is the fix, Joel? What's the fix?
The fix is a commissioner's office and getting some of this power away from the commissioners of the conferences. For instance, this is what I would do. Yeah. And sounds like a little bit of a political ploy, but this is what I would do to fix college football. Every power conference would be built the same. They would have the same number of teams. They would have the same number of divisions so that the schedule inequities would be fixed. I'm going to make the schedule for you. You're going to play 2 lower division teams, like a group of 5 team, maybe even an FCS team that's regional to your school to help with their budgets. So you're going to host 2 of those teams a year to help with their budgets, and we can pay them $1 million each, and they can retain their football programs. And then in your other 2 non-conference games, I'm going to schedule it based on where you finished in your division a year ago. So this year, let's just say hypothetically, hey, the SEC West and the Pac-12 North are scheduling partners, and the SEC West is also a scheduling partner with the Big Ten, let's call it West. Okay, so Alabama would then play Stanford and Iowa in the non-conference. They're going to go to Kinnick Stadium. They're going to get Stanford to come down to Tuscaloosa. And that's their non-conference schedule, and there's nothing they can do about it. The last-place team would play a last-place schedule, so you're going to get more parity. More teams and more players would get a chance to go to a bowl game under this scenario, and you would have a much more equitable system that you could rate teams on at the end of the year, and then the playoff is actually legitimate, rather than what we have now, which is just 12 people in the room throwing darts at a dartboard. Sometimes they're blindfolded and sometimes their eyes are open.
Wow. I vote for you for president, Joel Klatt. You got my vote.
That's fire, Joel. That was fantastic.
So the question is how realistic is that? I mean, to have actually happen?
Joel? Well, I think that the main push would be if the power coaches and athletic directors tried to wrestle some of this power away from the commissioners, because part of the problem is the commissioners work for the school presidents and chancellors. And so that's who they answer to. If you asked and polled ADs around the country, they would be desperate to get some of the power away from the commissioners of these conferences because they act in what many believe to be a short-sighted manner. Why do they act in a short-sighted manner? Because the presidents do flybys. Hey, what's best for my budget next year? Okay, great, let's do that. Take the one-partner deal with the playoffs, and so it's only one television partner, rather than what the NFL did, and I hesitate to even mention the NFL because people in college bristle at that. But the bottom line is this. The Cowboys and the Patriots are more valuable than other organizations in the NFL. But they understand that the strength of their league is more important than the strength of their brand. And if the league is strong, their brand is going to grow exponentially. I would argue that Texas and Alabama and Ohio State and USC would be stronger and more valuable if they started to bring along other schools with them and they started to create these umbrellas that would increase the number of competitive games, which would do what? Increase the revenue based on what us, the television partner, would pay for the amount of inventory that would be out there. Because quite frankly, we're tired of televising, early season games when it's like, well, we'll go do a Stanford game, but I guess we got to televise Rice as well because Stanford's going to host Rice or so on and so forth. So that's one of the big issues.
Joel Klatt calling the Big Ten championship game on Fox on Saturday. So I guess that's the future, and I'd love to delve into this more on future visits for you to my show. In person, too, Joel. I got to get you in person at some point when the season's over.
The fall time has been crazy, and I apologize about that.
No. I just wanted to throw that out there anyway while I had you on the phone. So, but for the here and now, though, what do you think happens? Do you think the current 4 that's in right now is going to be the 4 that we hear on Sunday playing for the Glass Egg on New Year's Eve and beyond?
First of all, I think Colorado's going to win. So hopefully we get a little wrench in the bucket in that sense. But
so if that happens, then who takes that 4th spot?
The problem becomes in my game. Listen, if Penn State wins, how do you keep them out of the playoff? They won the division Ohio State plays in. They won the conference Ohio State plays in. And they won the game that they played against Ohio State. So in my estimation, you can't include Ohio State if Penn State wins unless you include the Nittany Lions as well, which puts a precarious situation on Clemson and Washington victory if they're able to win their conference championship game. Mm-hmm. It's a huge issue. I'm a conference championship guy. I think it should be a prerequisite to go to the playoff. Therefore, and Ohio State fans are all over me about this, but I don't understand why it's just, Ohio State is in and no one can say anything else. Why?
Well,
they've
because
got a low floor, they've got a high ceiling.
No, I know, but they also have one fewer.
Is West Virginia? I mean,
they have one fewer loss, though. They have one fewer loss than the two loss teams, and I might be biased when I'm saying this. I think they won the de facto Big Ten championship game that went down on Saturday. With all due respect to what you're calling on Saturday.
And you know what? They were thoroughly dominated in the game, and the fact that we don't have a down-the-line camera angle on fourth down, I'll still never know why from a television perspective. But you can't tell me that they won the game, Rich. So if we're going to get into the subjective gray area of the playoff and talk about best and resumes, I mean, did they win? I don't know.
Joel, have a great broadcast with Gus Johnson. And when the inevitable Big Ten refereeing screw-up happens, just think of me in the back of your head saying, I told you so. Okay?
You got it. Hey, guys, okay. I appreciate you having me on.
Always.
See you, Joel.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.